Okay, so what I want to look at here is dividing complex numbers. So something that's really important in relation to dividing complex numbers is understanding this idea of what's called a complex numbers conjugate. So what we have here, if we take this first guy here, so Z1, so remember this is just like a placeholder for a complex number. So Z1 is equal to 3 minus 4i, so that's the complex number. So you have this part here is the real part, and then this part here is the imaginary part. Now, if I want to get its conjugate, so if we have a look here, so the symbol that we use to represent the conjugate is just a Z with a bar over the top like so. And all we do is to get the conjugate of a number, we just take the complex number and we change the sign in front of the imaginary part. So for example, this is minus 4i and we change it to plus 4i. So this is what's called a complex numbers conjugate. So again, if we look at this other example, so this is just Z1. So Z1 is, so the real part is minus 2 and the imaginary part is plus 6i. So again, if I want to get its conjugate, and remember this Z with a bar over it, it means its conjugate, I just change the sign. I just change the sign in front of the imaginary number. So in the complex number here, it's plus 6. And in the conjugate, it's going to be minus 6. Okay, so just another important point then as well when we're dealing with conjugates. So this rule here is important. When a complex number and its conjugate are added or multiplied, the result is always a real number. So as an example here, I'm going to work through this one. So we want to take this complex number here and its conjugate, and we want to add them together. And what we should get, according to this rule, we should have a real number. So let's look at that and see how that works. So what we can do is when we're adding complex numbers together, we just add the real parts, add or subtract real parts, or add or subtract or minus the complex parts. So if we take this, so it's going to be 3 plus 3. So well, the first thing we can do is we can just remove the brackets. Okay, so it's going to be 3 minus 4i plus 3 plus 4i. So if we take the real part, so we have 3 plus 3, that's equal to 6. And then we have minus 4i plus 4i, they'll just cancel out. Okay, or so they'll just basically cancel out. So what you'll notice is that, like when you add conjugates, what happens is the complex numbers actually cancel each other out. So let's say, so for example, if this is the complex number 3 minus 4i, then the conjugate is going to be, you just change the sign to plus, so they cancel out. So what ends up happening is just the real parts get added up. So for example, this one ends up as 6, which is a real number. Again, the same thing applies when we multiply a complex number by its conjugate. So let's have a look at how that works out. So again, if we want to multiply these two guys together, so remember, we're just multiplying this part by here, and then we're multiplying this by this, then we multiply this part by this, and then this part by this, like so. So let's multiply these out. So just put this multiplication sign here. So we have, so 3 multiplied by 3 gives us 9. 3 multiplied by plus 4i gives us plus 12i. Minus 4i multiplied by 3 gives us minus 12i. Okay, and then minus 4i multiplied by plus 4i, 4 and 4 is 8, 8 and 8 is 16, so it's going to be equal to minus 16i squared, like so. So you have 9 plus 12i minus 12i minus 16i squared. So what we can do then is we can collect up the like terms, so we can simplify this a little bit more. So it'll be 9, so plus 12i minus 12i, they'll just cancel out, and this will be 9 minus 16i squared. That's what it'll look like. And then remember we have this guy here, so I squared. So I squared is equal to minus 1. Okay, so remember this is something else that you just need to learn off and remember in relation to complex numbers. So what we can do is we can substitute this minus 1 value into this expression here. So that becomes, so we have 9 minus 16 times, and then we have the minus 1. That minus 1 is coming from here. Okay, so we substitute it's coming from that rule. So remember I squared is equal to minus 1. So where there's an I squared, we can just substitute in the value for minus 1. So then we can work this out. So this is going to be equal to 9. So minus 16 multiplied by minus 1, that gives us plus 16. Okay, and 9 plus 16 is equal to 25. Okay, so 25 again, that's a real number, just like this guy here is a real number. So that's this rule here. So when a complex number and its conjugate are added or multiplied, the result is always a real number. So this is what you'll get when you add or multiply complex numbers by their conjugate. So again, just to recap on the lesson, so again we're going to start to look at dividing complex numbers. So again, this idea of a complex number conjugate, it's just the, so for example, if this is your complex number, 3 minus 4i, then the conjugate is you just change the sign in front of the imaginary number. So the conjugate of 3 minus 4i is going to be 3 plus 4i, and we just use this symbol here to represent it. That means the conjugate. Okay, and then just this rule is important. When a complex number and its conjugate are added or multiplied, the result is always a real number. So again, we've went through this example here. We've added this complex number and its conjugate, and it ends up as a real number. And we've taken this complex number and its conjugate and we've multiplied them by each other, and it ends up as a real number as well. Okay, so really important just in relation to understanding how to divide complex numbers. Okay, thank you for listening.